The Quest is the second episode of the season written by journeyman Robert J. Shaw. His last episode was the highly important Back to Normal episode, Taste of Success, that immediately followed the reveal of who shot JR. He would go on to multiple Emmy nominations for his collaborative work on General Hospital. Thankfully, Shaw's The Quest shakes the season out of its slumber. Claude Brown, covert ops expert, shows up at Ewing Oil unannounced to tell JR that things are happening, and also to remind him, and more importantly the audience, that those same things are illegal. He warns JR that if it goes sideways, Brown is invisible, and then Mr. Invisible walks out conspicuously past Luella and Leslie. Only the best people. JR tells Leslie he was just a salesman. Smooth. And then he gets jealous that Leslie is seeing other clients. Back at the ranch, Bobby and Jock bond over not knowing what in the hell their wives are up to. Speaking of, Miss Ellie is on her way out again. Jock laments not being able to have dinner as a family. Down at the Gulf, Alex takes a few more shots at Bobby's husbandry skills on the way out the door. JR shows up unannounced with dinner, thinking that Leslie's appointment may have been canceled. Turns out it was, but she quickly made another appointment because she's in such high demand. As Llewellyn arrives for her rendezvous with Clint, she spies the same creepy guy following her from the last episode. She's so concerned that she's barely able to pay attention to Clint's fascinating stories about electronics manufacturing. Clint doesn't believe it and thinks she's being paranoid. Yeah, he's a successful married electronics businessman, and she's married to a megalomaniacal oil billionaire who is recently obsessed with public image. It's frankly absurd that the thought even entered her mind. Because Mitch is a man on this show, he's too busy to stop and have dinner with Lucy. Instead, Lucy has to have dinner with Afton and Arliss. This gives Lucy the opportunity to take a page out of Sue Ellen's playbook and tell Afton to knock it off with JR, or she'll tell Mitch that she's been whoring around. Although, not in those exact words. What I appreciate about the evolution of Afton's character is how dumb she could have been portrayed and how savvy they actually make her. Audrey Landers doesn't exactly have a mountain of work to indicate she'd be able to give a good performance. So either the directors knew how to direct her, the editors knew how to cut together a good performance, or Audrey just got this character. Whatever the reason, her 1,000-yard stare as it sinks in that Lucy is threatening her is a great moment of the season. I would be remiss in not mentioning the presence of Sherry Lynn Katzman, daughter of frequent Dallas director Leonard Katzman. After a brief stint as a different character at the end of Season 2, Katzman settled into the role of Jackie Dugan, Pamela's assistant here and later Cliff's secretary for the rest of the series. Here, she teases Pam about Alex's obsession with her, but Pam says they're just friends. In this episode's sweetest moment, and a candidate for one of the best moments of the season, Miss Ellie comes home late to find Jock passed out in his reading chair. So she covers him with a blanket and takes his glasses off. It's sweet that even though she's harboring hurt feelings and anger toward him, she still loves him and cares for him. Anger will come and go, but focusing on the long term is what makes couples successful after all. On the opposite end of that spectrum, Sue Ellen presses JR on if he's having her followed. JR, ever the catty scoundrel when backed into a corner, tells her,
"I'm not having you followed because I just don't give a damn."
Lucy's secret to keeping a good house gets revealed, to us anyway, when her cleaning lady Dolores arrives. To avoid Mitch's objections, Lucy secretly brings her in to keep up the appearance that she's a devoted homemaker. She also scolds her for showing up too early before going back to bed after what appears to be 2 waking hours. Dolores, by the way, is played by longtime character actress Claudia Bryan, who I recognize as Mrs. Spool, the kindly waitress who befriends Norman Bates in Psycho 2. Dr. Elby is still skeptical that Sue Ellen is being followed, triggering her fallback response.
I don't understand.
Sue Ellen reminds him that every time she's argued something is true, it turned out to actually be true. So he probably needs to turn off the gaslight. At the hotel, Alex tells Pam that it's been fun harassing her, but she's clearly not ready to leave Bobby, so he's out the door. He will hold on to her number, though, just in case Bobby does something stupid. Actually, those are really good odds. I can't fault him for that. Sue Ellen goes to see her lawyer, and he becomes the 4th man to tell her that she's imagining things. When she tells him she came to him because he was the only one who believed her when JR was shot, he drops everything and says he'll get right on it. At Ewing Oil, the Texas Democratic Party, including spokesperson Donna Culver, drops another bombshell.
We're not here to raise funds, Bobby. We'd like you to be our candidate.
I know that the Dallas writers are fairly careful about using euphemisms like your party and our party's candidate as to not alienate Republicans or Democrats, but they drop enough hints throughout the series to give us a sense. Donna puts on the full court press and gives the Captain America speech, and Bobby is so moved that he does a 180 right there on the spot. JR is so happy for Bobby that he busts the Iago act out of mothballs and tells him to look to his wife. Cliff has already turned into a disheveled mess over not getting the call to replace Dave. Donna tells him that he's a good guy behind the guy, but he's not the guy. He practically tosses Donna out of his apartment after her act of ultimate betrayal, and then winds up being Bobby's guy behind the guy anyway, so all it does is break up Cliff and Donna. At South Fork, Pamela scolds Bobby for making a huge decision without telling her. She admits to the affair with Alex Ward, but also takes a page out of Ellie's book, saying that she realized that they can work through anything because they love each other. I love it when the relationships parallel each other on the show, because they demonstrate so many different potential outcomes. In the next scene, we get a hint that Audrey Landers was well ahead of her time, as Afton belts out a sweet country torch song for JR in the lounge audience. It's worth noting that Landers was a Juilliard-trained singer who had already produced 2 singles by the time she was hired as Afton Cooper. Now, people wouldn't think twice about an actress crossing over to music, or vice versa, because being a double threat is what Disney and Nickelodeon practically trained them for. In Landers' day, though, crossing over was much harder. An actress cutting albums was seen as an exercise in vanity. Ironically, though, Vanity crossed over from music to acting, so go figure. Anyway, JR is there to pick her up for their rendezvous. At breakfast the next morning, Jock is uncharacteristically passive-aggressive for the second time this episode. It's clear he's not happy with Bobby's decision to step down from the helm of Ewing Oil. But he's not outright saying it. Instead, he just keeps implying that Bobby is fickle and keeps bouncing from project to project.
You tend to your politics, Bobby, or whatever it is these days.
I mean, in fairness, we don't know how that tract housing and shopping mall Ewing Construction was working on turned out, or when Ewing Solar is going to come online. Maybe Jock has a point about Bobby not being able to commit. JR gets good news from Southeast Asia, but Leslie tells him it's bad for his image to be seen with second-rate saloon singers. Whoa! Did you not just hear the thing about Juilliard? Besides, Afton could run a tape recorder and arrange for a full-page ad, but Leslie Stewart couldn't sing The Apple Don't Fall Far from the Tree. Checkmate. In Dallas, Sue Ellen's stalker gets made and agrees to spill after some pretty hollow legal threats from Sue Ellen's lawyer. Invasion of privacy? She was out in public with her side boy. Harassment? I mean, maybe, but they never even interacted. The point is, Appleton is a private investigator who was hired to follow Sue Ellen. He doesn't know who hired him or why they wanted him to follow her, but he does have one key piece of information. He delivers his reports to a safety deposit box in Denton. Sue Ellen heads there herself to find her stalker's benefactor. She clandestinely follows him home, or at least as clandestine as one can in vanity license plates. And there she sees a shadowy figure in the back of a limo receive the report, causing her to deliver an absolute mic drop of a final line.
Oh dear God, it can't be.
And on that humdinger of a cliffhanger, we are out. After a few episodes of waiting around the Atlantic, waiting for Kate Winslet to let us up on the floating door, we finally get the rescue call with this cliffhanger. But first, the other stuff. JR's plot is interesting if only because it's so slammed into the audience's brains with a sledgehammer that you know that something big is going to come of it later. Brown showing up again for no other reason than to repeat that JR is violating federal law mirrors Von Leland's warning last season about losing South Fork.
Understand, JR. The banks will take over South Fork.
He practically looks directly into the camera and says, "Keep this in your pocket for later." Lucy faking a domestic life is something that would be more at home in a sitcom. It resembles something that another Lucy would try only to get chewed out by her husband. Although, for some reason, it's not as funny imagining it with Lee McCloskey's square-jawed Midwestern accent. BTW. McCloskey, also a Juilliard-trained actor. It's like Dallas just drafts him right out of Juilliard. I wonder if that strategy would work with the Mavericks. Pamela finally coming home to Bobby, regardless of how dopey and in the clouds he is about life, is sort of welcome too. I mean, I don't like that she basically says, "I love you even when you neglect me," but I do like that she had the conversation and let him know that she would and could sleep with another man if it came down to it. The other big news is Bobby being picked out of nowhere to be a state senator. Of course, that's going to have big implications in the last half of the season, but for now, it gives Cliff something else to complain about. And that's all I really need from Cliff. He was too happy this season. I need my Cliff to be miserable. But the big reveal wasn't a reveal at all. We just know that Sue Ellen saw someone that she knows, and she can't believe that person would be keeping tabs on her. Who could it be? Is it someone we know? If so, have we seen them this season? If you're watching this, you already know the answer. But suffice it to say, this was actually the kind of evil twin amnesia long-lost heir I object to the wedding falling down an elevator shaft cheese that I live for. We'll find out more next time, but for now, savor the way that Dallas can build a plot like no other.